Welcome back to another episode of Sal and Pals Go to the Movies. This is another Throwback Thursday review, and I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hi, guys.
And today we're going to be reviewing Batman and Robin from 1997. And there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. Batman and Robin try to keep their relationship together even as they must stop Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy from freezing Gotham City. Let's start off by going down my pros, as I always do. But I'm going to let you know that there's not that many pros, so quickly, during the scene where Batgirl is racing in the tunnels, next to Coolio, the rapper who's in the movie, there's a person who's standing next to him who is dressed as a certain character from the movie Clockwork Orange, and this person is dressed in white, has a hat, old Stanley Kubrick movie. That I thought was a really nice touch, even though it didn't really have match with the movie, but it's still a kind of really nice appreciation for Stanley Kubrick films. The next is, if you remember, Poison Ivy's breaking Mr. Freeze from jail. Bane smashes through the guard's wall, and in that holding cell we see two costumes, Joker's costume and Two-Face. It's basically a throwback to the previous Batman movies. That was a little nice Easter egg for people who have seen other movies. But as my pros, that's it. Now moving on to my cons, I'm going to go really fast through them. In the beginning of the opening scene, there's some unnecessary butt suit shots and nipple suit shots that I thought were intended to be hilarious and comical, the way they're suiting up. This didn't feel right. It kind of just made the movie lose a lot more credit with me. Next is when they're fighting Mr. Freeze for the first time, and Batman and Robin are on their butts, and they do a little click of the heel and pop out some skates. Yes, I understand Batman has gadgets, and if you want to say that this movie is hilarious because of that everything is in their utility belt. Even Adam West, Batman from 1966, is supposed to be really cheesy, but if you think about it, I'd rather watch Batman from 1966 versus this movie. So this, along with Mr. Freeze's puns, did not sit well with me. Yes, I understand it. It's hilarious to hear Arnold Schwarzenegger try to speak English, but at the same time, with those puns, it kind of gets boring after a while. Also, when they're coming off the rocket that it exploded and they start surfing and they're saying surfs up, that kind of really took me out of the movie. It's just the jokes really badly placed in this movie. It doesn't do anything to the movie. For example, during the auction of Poison Ivy that they're bidding on her, and Batman he's in a bidding war with Robin. He pulls out a credit card and it says never leave the Batcave without it. I thought that was a really cheesy way of doing a product placement, which was not even a real credit card. If anything, just go with a real credit card, give them some publicity. Another point is that some characters, they got their story all wrong. Bane, his story was already established in the comic books and in the animated series as an intelligent rival to Batman. There's so much that Bane has done that not any other evil villain has done against Batman. He found out whose Batman's secret identity was. He basically beat Batman and broke his back. But here we just see him as a regular henchman, thug, what have you. It's basically Poison Ivy's puppy following her around. The next is, why is Vivica A. Fox in the movie plain character who's in love with Mr. Freeze? And in that outfit, isn't it so cold that her skin is going to be frozen already? Because we see the henchmen, even with their jackets and everything, they're freezing cold. Is she immune to the cold, just like Mr. Freeze? If she was, couldn't you establish that before? Don't just throw her in there as eye candy, as other people have said. Also, Barbara Gordon is not Barbara Gordon. She's basically Alfred Sneeze. This did not sit well with me. They hinted that she was Oracle because she's studying computer, cyber something. I don't even know what it was. This movie was just really horrible. Even Mr. Freeze is smoking. Why is he smoking when he's supposed to be cold? It's just so bad. So with that, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to pass it on to my friend Touly and see how he saw this movie and what grade he gave this movie.
Well, just like Sal, I don't think I'm going to have a lot of positive to say about this film. Gonna probably be more on the negative side. Yeah, I'm gonna start with my positive, or at least try to conjure some things to say positively about the film. I guess first things first, I could look down the cast and say that I do recognize a lot of these people, high-profile actors and actresses. You know, Sal already mentioned Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze. Of course, we have George Clooney as Batman, Uma Thurman, who's also in this film. And I believe this was the first film that I got introduced to who Alicia Silverstone was, who played Batgirl. But despite the cast, I would not just question the origin of some of the characters that these people played. Sal mentioned how Batgirl, aka Barbara Wilson, was actually Barbara Wilson and not Barbara Gordon. I can see how that could rub people the wrong way, and to me it kind of got to me too, because I would love that to have been like canon. Arnold Schwarzenegger, like I said, I grew up watching a lot of his films as a kid. I think Sal and I reviewed Commando at one point as a throwback on his podcast. As a kid, I was a fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger, but as far as him playing Mr. Freeze though, that did throw me off. I actually grew up watching the cartoon series, the Batman cartoon series that was in the 90s. And the way they portrayed Mr. Freeze in the cartoon series, I would have actually liked Patrick Stewart to have played Mr. Freeze, because I would have been able to identify Patrick Stewart more easily due to his appearance, you know, to be Mr. Freeze than Arnold Schwarzenegger, based on what I grew up with in the 90s. And of course, George Clooney coming out to saying what he has about his role in this film and him not being as pleased with the result. And I think people might give George Clooney a bad rep for his role and how bad the film was, but I don't really blame George Clooney. I look at it more from the creator side and the limitation perhaps that was placed upon him and the other cast, and just the absurdity that was happening throughout the film, as I'm transitioning over to like my cons here, where it was just too over the top for me. You know, Mr. Freeze, again, being played by Arnold Schwarzenegger with a lot of like one-liners throughout most of the film, and over time it does wear on you. And even like Batman himself, right from the get-go with his cheesy introduction to Mr. Freeze, I mean, it just didn't give me a great vibe to start with, and it just carried throughout the film. It was just very difficult for the film to recover. But I did like that Batgirl was in the film, because I believe, if Sal can correct me too, that this is the only Batman film that we've seen Batgirl in. You know, it was a nice nod to that, but again, they could have handled her character a lot better too in terms of like her origin. And then Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy. I mean, Uma Thurman, you know, having come off some really, really good movies before this film, and to see her in this sort of role, it just felt really, really odd to me. So, yeah, the film was just bad in so many retrospects, you know, pacing, the absurdity of it all. I guess I'm glad that the film was only 2 hours long. I mean, normally for like superheroes movies nowadays, we can expect these sort of films to be 2 hours and 30 minutes, but it was like around 2 hours, which is good. And the fact that the film didn't do too well, I'm glad that a new trilogy came to fruition because of this. And of course, I'm talking about the Christopher Nolan, because I think this kind of spurred the motivation to reboot the series. Of course, it led to Batman Began with Christian Bale as Batman, and then of course in the first movie of that trilogy, Katie Holmes as Rachel. If anything, if I have to think of it as a glass half full mentality, then despite how bad this movie is, it did lead to Batman Begin and the trilogy that it led to, which was my favorite out of the Batman movie series. So, you know, I have to give it an indirect prop for that, if that counts for anything. But as far as this movie goes though, as a standalone film, even though they do sort of tie it with the prior films, because it took place a couple of years, I believe, after the prior one, which involved the Riddler and Two-Face, I believe. Yeah, I think it just could have been a whole lot better. Maybe if they had toned down the comical side and had a more serious tone at times, then I would have liked the film a bit more, but it was just too out there for me to latch on to. So in the end, I think I'm going to give the film a 3 out of 10.
Yes, I agree with you. This movie was bad, but I'm just glad that we got to see, like you said, Barbara in the movie. We got to see a bunch of characters come out together. When I was a kid, this was for me like a comic book and the TV series coming out and having its own movie. But the way they approached it, I don't blame the actors. I don't blame the director. But I kind of do point at the director and say, why didn't you fight the studio? If the studio wanted this to be comical and sort of cheesy to sell toys or something, why not stop them and tell them, hey, this is not the right way. It's okay to refuse a film if you don't stand by it. Because now George Clooney says that it was the worst film he's been in, and he didn't like how he went with the role. It's been known for George Clooney to refund people who have said that, they hated it because he really felt that it was his fault. Now he's accepted it that it's not his fault. It was basically the script or in the studio. The director has come out and said that it was his bad. It was probably on him that he could have questioned the studio. So everybody, let's just admit it, that the studio took a wrong turn. This had potential. Rewrite it. Fix some characters. It could have been decent. Tone the jokes, make it a little more serious. I'm not saying do the Dark Knight trilogy, like make it dark or anything, but I'm just saying, make it a more serious. Like even the cartoon series was a little serious and a little darker than this movie. This movie would, to me, seemed like it was a kid playing with toys, So for me, I'm going to give it the same grade, 3 out of 10. And I guess that does it for this review of Batman and Robin. Please join us next time when we're going to review Shark Tales.
I bring you in here, look you in the eye, tell you what's what. And what?
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 What? Nothing. You said what first?
I didn't say what first. I asked you what.
No, you said and then what, and I said what?
No, I said what? Like what?
Please like, comment, and subscribe. You can find our social media links below. And like always, keep watching movies.